How's it going, FrazlCast listeners? My name is Ryan, and I'm coming at you from the Raiders Confessional Podcast.
Yes, the experiments are proceeding nicely. We've got 2 specimens in our lab, Berzerker and Navox of the Unshackled Fury. Frazley, come in here.
Yes, master?
What's wrong with your voice?
Sorry, I had something in my throat. Podcasting can be difficult on the lungs. So what do you need?
Say my name.
What do you need, VonFrizl Sparkypants?
Good. I would like you to interview Navox and Berzerker. I'd like to see behind the Fury. They're in exam rooms P and Q.
Why can't I interview them together?
I could come up with a story reason, but let's just say that due to oh dear raid nights, we couldn't get them on the same night in scheduling.
Got it. Let's start the GNOME train first.
Why? Can't we just go into the interviews?
Come on, this is the podcast, and I like to have a good presentation.
If you insist, let's start the GNOME train.
Welcome to FrazlCast, a podcast by a Blizzard fan gnome about World of Warcraft and geeky stuff. I promise you, they do talk about the World of Warcraft. They just go off the rails sometimes.
Frazley, the door to the exam hallway broke. You will need to use your customized ultra-safe transporter to get there.
Test subject, Navox.
What got you into WoW?
I think it was just a natural progression of MMOs. I started playing Ultima Online when that came out, went from Ultima Online to Everquest in 1999. Navox was born in Everquest in 1999 in the hills of Hollis in the permafrost. That was the area where the barbarians were in game. I played with a small group of people who were local here. Through Everquest, I developed more friendships, in game, and we eventually formed a guild. The guild's name was called the Keepers of Oak. It was a druid-based guild. I've played a warrior ever since, Everquest. In Ultima Online, basically anybody could do anything. In Ultima Online, you would have your character, and it could be a mage. You could do whatever you wanted, really. You could do magic, and you could be a warrior. You could be a tank mage, a plate mage, all that kind of stuff if you wanted to. In EverQuest, it started to get more into the class system where you had tank, healer, DPS, and so on and so forth. Several of my friends that I became close with in the guild that I had left to join raiding guilds in EverQuest. They were the premier raid groups. Like the premier raid group at the time was Brotherhood of the Spider. They actually woke the sleeper back in EverQuest. They were the first guild worldwide to do that. And I got to be part of that raid team. And in 2004, I was with that raid team until 2004. In 2004, Omens of War was released. But at the same time, that's also when World of Warcraft was released. So I started playing both games at the same time. I had 2 PCs with 2 monitors. I had EverQuest on one. While I was raiding, I was also leveling up a warrior in World of Warcraft. And I had actually lost interest in World of Warcraft. My friends who got me to play WoW initially stopped playing both games altogether. I actually stopped playing WoW just for a little bit and went back to full-time raiding in EverQuest. The friendships you make in these games are very real. And I miss my friends, so I went back to what I knew with EverQuest. So I kept raiding in EverQuest. Our guild was asked to beta test one of the expansions for EverQuest called the Depths of Dark Hollow. That was my last expansion in EverQuest. I wasn't really interested in the whole vampire and werewolf expansion. That's what it was. That's when I made the full-time jump over to World of Warcraft. So in 2005, I saw the Leroy Jenkins video. I saw that video and I'm like, man, I want to jump back into playing World of Warcraft. So that's when I jumped back in. I made an undead rogue and a tauren warrior over on Skull Crusher. Yes, I started out as Horde on a PvP server, no less. And I leveled up. I enjoyed the Baron's chat, the landscape, the music, and I was having a blast. I remember reaching max level 60, standing in Orgrimmar, looking over and seeing, a shaman in these really awesome looking tier 1 shoulders. And I asked him where he got them. And he told me Molten Core and that I have to raid to get it. That's what set me off on to doing raiding and things like that. My external friends, actually, who I worked with, were the ones who actually got me back into playing World of Warcraft full time. It was my friends from outside.
You've created so many friends inside the game.
So many.
Face pull, convert to raid. I can't think of convert to raid without Navox.
That's kind of you to say. I joined Convert to Raid back in MOP. The guild was still very, very young, but we weren't at full capacity. We didn't fill up all the guilds yet. We actually formed a couple more during MOP for the influx of people coming over. What got me to join Convert to Raid initially was seeing there was this Game Breaker special. First of all, this thing came out during Cataclysm launch. Like Cataclysm was launching. Game Breaker Video was doing this thing where basically it was a documentary about following a guild during Wrath and the raiding experience. It was actually community manager lore. It was his guild. He was doing it. This director set them all up with webcams, asked them to record the raid experience back in Wrath of the Lich King. I remember seeing that. And then I remember seeing Pat on the show during Game Breaker while this was all going on. And he was talking about it. And he had mentioned Convert to Raid and how they had just started a guild and they were welcoming people over. And at the time, what was nice was I was on a high pop server and they were offering realm swaps. It was free for me to transfer off and go to Area Peak. I started getting involved with a lot of stuff in the guild. I wasn't ready for what it actually was. It's like the initial experience of what guilds were back in the day. It's that big family feel where you log in and it's just this welcoming green text. Everybody's in guild. Everybody's chatting. They're having a nice conversation. Not only that, we have the event team. Maybe there's people that don't raid. Maybe there's people that don't participate in all aspects of WoW. And they put things together on the calendar to get people involved in the guild that may not get involved normally. There's some people in guild that log in and they just want to be by themselves. They want to log in, do their quests and log out and not be bothered with raiding. And that's okay. That's fine. But sometimes they also want to participate in other things in the game, and that's where our event team comes into play. They put together LFR. They put together normal raids. Sprout was doing a fantastic job last expansion. He put together a Friday and Saturday night raid group where we would go in. We were killing normal Antorus, and then eventually I think it worked up to heroic Antorus, and he was getting people like ahead of the curve achievements at that point.
Nice.
But yeah, I did some greetery things in the guild, and then I got to work on the back end with the database. On our member page, we have a form where people fill out if they need tech support, and there's a couple of us that answer those tech support tickets. It's been a fun ride with the Convert to Raid Guild. I've met lots and lots of really, really nice people. A lot of them are close friends now at this point. I raid with all of my friends. It's just nice to have the camaraderie. Battle for Azeroth launched. All of us were leveling up. We all got together. We all pushed each other through heroics and mythics. And by the time everybody listens to this, raids have dropped. I can't wait to get in there.
Test subject, Berzerker.
So what got you into WoW?
It's not a very sexy story, but I'm a South Park baby. Said this a couple times on Unshackled Fury that essentially what happened was way back in the day when I used to watch South Park. So this was, 11 years ago whenever Make Love Not Warcraft came out. I didn't really know what it was completely. I knew what Warcraft was because I dabbled a bit in the RTS days, but not anything serious. And I'd seen the ads and I'd seen it in GameStop. It's on the peripheral and I'd seen it a bunch of times. And then the episode comes out. I'm like, something about this. I want to check it out. 10-day free trial. And I'll never forget this. Before my wife and I were married, we were engaged at the time. No, this was right after we got married, actually. We were living in this townhouse and we're standing right at the top of one of the stairs that we had there. And I remember walking over to my wife and saying, I think I'm going to try it out. It's just 10-day free trial. Nothing to worry about. I'm just curious. I just want to see what it is. By the way, this is how drugs happen. It's the same exact thing. This is how people just go down the bad road. And I said, I'm just going to try it and see what happens. 11 years later, man, still here, still doing the thing. I think like everybody else that plays, you're curious. You want to check it out. You jump in, and it's just a blast. And you can't always put your finger on why, but you're having fun. It's easy, but there's a challenge. The setting is fun. The music is awesome. You're leveling up. I mean, I've always been the same tune. I have been Berzerker since day one, being a warrior, doing my thing. Just hooked from moment one, going into Elwyn Forest and hacking up spiders. And then I went to work. This was on a weekend. I went into work on Monday. I told my buddy, dude, I played this game. It's called World of Warcraft. Here's the server you got to get on. I made a warrior. Be a warrior. Come on. He and I still play together to this day. We're still on the same raid team. We party at every BlizzCon and have forever. That is the Berzerker origin story.
And you've been podcasting for a while because of your love for WoW.
The podcast has gone through kind of two phases. Originally started it almost 3 years ago. Did it for about a year, took a year off, and then been back almost a year. Did have a hiatus period, but yeah, I've been rocking pretty solid now for the last year with Navox, and the show's a little bit different. Kind of the 2.0 version's a little bit different than the first year I went around. But when you love something so much, you just want to tell the whole world about it.
When you started the podcasting, what hooked you into it?
It's hard to say. Probably my ego, just number one, because I think anybody that does a podcast, you have to have some amount of an ego. And I'm not saying like anybody that knows you, Fraz, and I'm not saying we know each other all that well, but just from listening to you and seeing you, I'm looking at your, at your face right here. You're not an egotistical guy. You're not going out there hitting the flex and all this other nonsense I see. I mean, you seem like a pretty down to earth dude. But all of us, to some degree, that do this kind of thing, have to have an ego saying, you know what, I have thoughts and ideas and opinions that other people might want to hear. So there is that rampaging part of my ego somewhere back here. To be quite honest, part of it is, I love the game, but part of it too is that I felt like there was something missing in the podcast community when I first came on the scene, and I wanted to kind of bring something a little different, and I felt like it was the right spot to do it. Wanted to come in and say, you know what, here's something for the everyday player. And it's going to be a little R-rated, and it's going to be a little kooky, and it might get a little aggressive sometimes. It's just kind of how I am.
Navox.
I can hear like a passion for WoW and a passion for the game and for relationships. So I'm going to kind of guess that passion was welling up so much inside of you that you wanted to just start podcasting about it.
That was real interesting how it started with how I got involved with podcasting. Once I joined Convert to Raid, I knew of the Convert to Raid podcast and show. I didn't start listening to podcasts till I joined this guild. And now I do nothing but listen to podcasts. It got to the point where my wife and I listen to podcasts all the time. That's our entertainment. We don't listen to the radio. On my way into work, at work, while I'm on the treadmill at working out or something like that, I've always got some podcast going on. But yeah, what got me into podcasting was the guild itself. My first podcast was actually a converted roundtable discussion with Belschnickel and Salmisis.
Oh, nice.
I forget what we were talking about. It probably had something to do with the rating. I think Sal made a stand that the only real true rating was 25-man rating at the time. I remember that caused a big uproar, and people were, they disagreed with her at the time. And I think there was a big discussion and a big roundtable. And I went on the show and I made my point that I only did 10-man rating. I didn't do 25-man rating at the time. And we only had normal and heroics. There wasn't a mythic. What people are doing now in mythic rating was heroic back then. It was October 3rd, 2013. And we used Google Hangouts to record. Then October 5th, I was asked to go on Press Y podcast and talk about achievement hunting adventures. But after that, I remember talking to Bell and Sal off camera, and I remember working on some artwork for them. And I also did some artwork there was a podcast at the time called Monk Meditation. I did their banner work. That was fun to do. And then I worked on some banner work for the Converted podcast. And then eventually Bell and Sal approached me and asked me if I wanted to be on the Converted podcast. And I said, yeah. And that was back in January 2014. And my first show was episode 23 with Terrarts. I was on that show for 42 episodes, and I needed to take a break. And my last show with the Converted was September 16th, 2015. But since I had that break, my wife was doing podcasts at the time. I had still been listening to podcasts. I was listening to the Unshackled Fury podcast a lot. I liked how different the show was, basically. I liked listening to the different points of what Berzerker was talking about. He did everything himself. Go back and listen to the earlier episodes. They're phenomenal. They're really, really well done. one evening, he was actually involved with doing another podcast with my wife and David Troy. It was a Netflix show. So they were talking about Sense8. And then I remember messaging Berzerker and saying, hey, are you ever going to bring Unshackled Fury back out? I missed that show. He was thinking about it. Then eventually we did an episode called Requiem for a King, where my wife and I participated with Berzerker, and we all made the funeral for Varian Wren. Eventually, he had asked me if I wanted to co-host with him, and I jumped on that. That's been my transition from podcasts so far, but from being on little roundtables to being a co-host on the Converted podcast, going from the Converted podcast to Unshackled Fury. I actually skipped one. I forgot about this, and I have to apologize. If Adam's listening right now, Geek of Random, I was on a podcast with Geek of Random called That Random Geek Cast, where we actually talked about nerd stuff and comic books and comic book movies and things like that. I was on that show for a little bit. That was during 2014 as well. That didn't last very long. I think it was out for maybe 6 months, and then we called it quits after a while. A lot of us, I think, wanted to play WoW more than talk about comic books and things like that. I think that eventually evolved into something else elsewhere, but that's how I got into podcasting. That's how I ended up being a co-host with Berzerker on Unshackled Fury.
It's one of those things I've seen where you get one small taste of podcasting and then you're like, I want more.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a creative outlet for me.
Yeah.
I have a lot of interests with technology. I work in IT. Once I started working with doing audio and sound and doing podcasts and trying to figure out how things work, trying to figure out how things work is part of the fun of doing podcasts. Trying to figure out how to route audio. For anybody who's not done it, you'll eventually, if you get into doing some sort of audio recording, you will eventually try to figure out how to make it better no matter what. It's a constant thing. It's not like set it and forget it. It's how can I make this sound better? How can I improve upon this? That's really what I enjoy about it. I really enjoy the technical aspect of it. I get to talk about World of Warcraft, something I'm really interested in. And I get to do it with my friend.
It sounds simple in the beginning when you say, hey, I'll record something. But then to get audio from a microphone into a computer and synced up with other people takes a lot more work than I ever imagined. But it's fun.
It is fun. But I think you just said something. A lot of people are deterred. They're thinking about doing a podcast. They're like, there's a lot of stuff involved. Honestly, the best thing I could tell anybody if they're going to get into podcasts is just jump in and record something. If you want to do something, just jump in, record it. It doesn't matter how it sounds right out of the run. If you have something to record, you want to record it, you want to get it out there, do that. Eventually, the quality will come in time because you'll listen to it. You'll make improvements on it. There's software out there to help. There's guides out there to help. One off the top of my head, Pat's got the Podcast Launchpad.
Oh, absolutely.
We'll show you how to do everything from start to finish. There's just a plethora of information out there you could find on how to set up a podcast, what software to use. You do not have to go and throw hundreds and hundreds of dollars right out of the gate on equipment. You will eventually, eventually you'll start throwing money at this hobby.
I just upgraded one of my audio plugins because it was on sale. I was like, okay, savings.
Yep, exactly.
It's taking me 72 episodes to get here, and it's still not where I want it to be, but it's going to be a lot longer before I get to where I want it to be. And then by then I won't be where I want it to be.
Well, you're doing a fine job so far.
Oh, thank you. Much better than I think some of the earlier stuff. But hey, I'm learning.
Oh, no, you need the earlier stuff, though. If you don't have the earlier stuff, you don't know, what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah. I think kind of even Blizzard's been with WoW.
Right.
Battle for Azeroth has been, you needed the early stuff because I was on WoW Talk last night and they said, in a way, WoW's learning that they need a story. So how are you enjoying BFA so far?
I have to say that I'm enjoying BFA a ton. Right now, I'm running around trying to gain the rest of my 7th Legion rep. I'm at 15K of 21K.
Nice.
I'm still trying to work on that Pathfinder achievement. Other than that, I have to go back through and level another character so I can actually see the storyline. Because I started out reading all of the quest text, but it was slowing me down trying to level. Admittedly, the game itself became a question mark, exclamation mark, question mark, things like that. I didn't read any of the quest text after about 111. I think after that, I think that was it. I was done. I was just going to walk up to that exclamation mark, get the quest, do the quest, and turn it in and just blow through the zones. I did it as quickly as possible. I took the week off work to do it. All the cutscenes are amazing.
Yeah.
Didn't skip any of those. I watched those. The Jaina storyline is, I can't praise the story group enough. But yeah, how about you? How are you enjoying BFA right now?
I'm loving it. I realize the only thing is there's so much that I have diagnosed ADHD, so I'm all over the place. Like, ooh, quest. Today I was doing some world quests and I was exploring, so I'm all over the place. I still got to finish story, but the good thing is when I got to 120, the quest unlocked world quests. I didn't have to do anything. I just got the quest, turned it right back in because I had already gotten friendly with all the factions.
I will say that I feel like I'm not as pressured to do Azerite power quests. My neck is only sitting at 18 right now. I haven't pursued Azerite power like I used to do the artifact power. I would run around every single night. I would clear out every single world quest, no matter what. No matter what it was, I was clearing out every single world quest just so that I can get artifact power, because I want to level the artifact up, because at the time I was a prot warrior tanking and I wanted to make sure I had the necessary artifact power to have the bonus abilities at the time, because we were going into a raid. I just wanted to make sure I was set for my team. That didn't stop. It felt like it was a job. It felt like I was logging in artifact power. I need to go do more artifact power. I need to go do more artifact power. This time around, I'm not really feeling any of that. I'm not feeling the pressure of it. I feel like it's a little bit more laid back. I'm only putting the pressure on myself to get the 7th Legion rep and things like that, because I want to level a Dark Iron Dwarf because they look really awesome.
Yeah.
They knocked it out of the park on this one, I think. Legion was really, really good in itself. So far, Battle for Azeroth, it's a pretty game. It's a pretty environment. You know, I've got my Alliance bias here, but I feel like the Alliance got the better end of the stick with their zones. I'm sick of running around Zandalar already. Like, I don't like the desert. The jungle's all right. You know, I like the Jurassic Park feel there. And I don't like the swamp so much. I feel really bad because Drustvar is amazing. Stormsong Valley is pretty. And Tirasgard's sound is awesome. I think the Alliance ended up with the better zones this expansion.
Well, and Alliance has the GNOME selfie quest.
That's right. It's a selfie world quest after you do the initial quest.
Yes. Interesting thing you bring up about the Horde versus the Alliance. I don't like the Horde cities as much as I like the Alliance. So it could be that we gravitate toward the Alliance stuff because we like it better. I'm betting that there's somebody who likes the Horde stuff better than the Alliance.
I'm sure there are. The only reason I've spent so much time over in Zandalar is to chase down that rep. Once I'm done, I'm going to probably spend the majority of my time doing more of the Alliance side of the world quest and things like that, because I have not touched a lot of the Alliance world quests. If there's a weapon on the map, maybe, but I don't even need that. It felt like we've been chasing down weapons now for the past 2 weeks, trying to get the right two-handed weapon or one-handed weapon. And last week, I know Warriors got a one-handed weapon, which was nice because it was part of the cache. All in all, I'm happy to be playing Alliance in Battle for Azeroth.
I think it's going to be like there were a few zones in Legion that I did not like. And then when Fly came in, I zoomed into them, got the world quest, and I zoomed out. And I think for me, Zandalar will be one. I'll fly in and fly out.
I agree with you there. Yep.
Berzerker.
And since you've been here for 11 years?
Yeah, 11 years.
How are you enjoying Battle for Azeroth so far?
Battle for Azeroth is in competition for greatest expansion already. It's early, man. It's 3 weeks in. We're loving it so far. I think the content is varied. The storylines are great. We covered this on the last show. Nav and I were talking about just the flow of leveling. Honestly, I think ever since Warlords, for all of its faults, I thought the leveling was kind of a revolution, because I felt that the flow, kind of the little treasures and odds and ends and things along the way, it really kind of mixed it up in a way that hadn't been done before. They carried that through to Legion. They carried that through now to Battle for Azeroth. So I've thoroughly enjoyed the leveling experience. This might be the first expansion where I've leveled an alt within the first year of the expansion being out, because I typically don't do a lot of alt work, but this one might be different just because I'm having a lot of fun with all of the content. The story, like I said, is phenomenal. I think that following Warlords, there's been some kind of paradigm shift for them and their storytelling, and you know what? I know that there's people out there that aren't digging what's going on, and hey, that's fine. You know what? You can't please 10 million people. There's going to be some people that aren't digging it or having a problem or whatever the case may be. But at least on the Alliance side, I'm loving what's going on with Jaina. I don't really know too much of what's going on with the Horde side. I've read about it, kind of picked up some bits and pieces here. And it seems like people on that side are loving the hell out of it and have their own little favorite characters, just like we have Flynn and we're loving it on the Alliance side. Other people on the other side are loving all the trolls and the Loas and the Bwansamdis and whatever the hell else is going on. They're loving it. So I've totally bought in. They really have to screw up at this point to make me want to jump ship.
Yeah, they finally have learned that story. I was listening to Countdown to Classic episode 63 with John States, and they said they never intended questing to be as prolific as it is now, because they were just going to have like some executives put in a couple quests here and there, but players in their beta testing who are doing the quests are like, oh. And I think since then, it's been a catch-up to really get that experience. I think BFA has captured that experience.
Yeah, and that guy, by the way, that Kickstarter for the book that he's doing has taken off.
Yeah.
Like a freaking rocket.
And what's cool about that is reading his updates, it's not just this book. He has a love for his company. Because I was listening to he said he's getting out of video games and into board games. And this is also helping him get the capital to launch his company. I'm like, that's awesome. We're creating a business. We're helping somebody get their dream off.
Yeah. You know, that feels good in an egalitarian sort of way where we're helping a guy out. But, you know, getting all the dirt stories that we're getting out of the vanilla production from him has been phenomenal. So if anybody out there listening to this has not chipped in to back this Kickstarter yet, for like $40, you can get this gigantic book that's going to tell you all about the development of Warcraft and I think a little bit kind of into the earlier expansion eras. But yeah, good for him.
Yeah.
What a monumental achievement.
And it's amazing that Blizzard has allowed it. I'm so thankful Blizzard's saying, hey, we're going to give you our secret. We're going to give you our dirty laundry, the stuff that we haven't wanted to tell you for years.
Yeah, he said, I think in a post or something somewhere, that he had cleared this with Blizzard Legal, that he'd had, I think, lunches with a few key folks and gotten their blessings. So it feels good. At least you know that they've signed off on it. So this isn't some dirty internet secret where they're just airing out all this laundry without getting a high sign first. So that's good.
And that any podcast that covers it is going to be instantly shunned by Blizzard.
Yeah, you don't want the taint of dirty memoirs all over your podcast. That would be very bad.
Yeah.
Bad for business.
Absolutely. And speaking of speculation and stuff like that, what is your speculation for Uldir Raid if you haven't gotten into it yet today?
No, and as far as I know, not too many people have either because they're having some kind of login issue today. But Uldir is interesting because it gives you, from what I can tell, insight into an era that Warcraft hasn't really explored all that much, which is the Black Empire era, which for people that aren't necessarily super nerd historians for Warcraft, the Black Empire was essentially a period of time during what they call Primordial Azeroth, when the mortal races didn't really exist. This was a time when the old gods ruled the planet, essentially. They had a war against the elemental gods like Ragnaros and all those big dudes and kicked their butts. The Titans ended up coming in, having their massive Titan army coming in. They cleaned house and wrecked all these dudes. Amon Thul essentially came down with his big giant hand and ripped the Asarj off the planet. And they discovered, well, that's probably not good because they're buried way deep into the planet, which is why they're all chained to the planet, not dead. Coming out of all of this, one of the things that they did was they built Uldir, which is apparently a Titan complex to experiment on the old gods, which sounds like the worst plot to a horror movie because you know it's not going to go well. And out of all of these experiments, they ended up essentially creating the worst of the worst, trying to figure out how to defeat the old gods. So it seems like there's a lot of the troll story wrapped up in this, with Azul, I think, coming back. He's being reborn. And if you recall, he's been around in storylines smattered here and there, going back several expansions. I know at least the Cataclysm when he was in a cinematic with Vol'jin and a bunch of the other trolls when they were recruiting all these guys. So I have a feeling you're probably going to get some kind of conclusion to some of the troll storylines that have been going on. I love all the Titan stuff. I don't know if we're necessarily going to get more of them, considering that we saw the Pantheon in the last expansion, and Illidan's now hanging out with them as some kind of fifth beetle for those guys. I don't know if there's more to be gleaned, but listen, anytime there's Titan stuff going on and we're in a Titan complex, my mind immediately goes to Ulduar, as I think a lot of people do, and we're like, however long we want to spend in there, it's cool, man. We'll dive around and we'll screw things up, and we'll call what's his face from the Explorers League, and he'll turn something on. It's not supposed to be turned on, and then we got a Blood God running around, and maybe Blade and Steven Dorff will show up, and it'll be amazing. It'll be amazing.
Well, I've got speculation that Mechanomes are there.
If they don't have at least one Mechanome, you need to protest heavily.
Well, if I did, I don't know if they would see me because I would be overlooked.
You know what? I'll put you on my shoulders and you can have a really high sign.
Yay!
Navox.
What is your speculation on the Old Deer raid story?
Well, I mean, it sounds like Ulduar. I'm expecting a ton of Titan security mechanisms in the raid, and I expect that we'll be calling it Odeer eventually, which will probably evolve into Hodeer by Mythic or something like that. I don't know. I went looking to see if I could find any information on Ulduar besides the in-game stuff that we have right now in our book, and also on Wowhead and things like that. But I haven't found a whole lot that would tell me anything about the story other than we're dealing with old gods, so we're going to be dealing with Titan security mechanisms like in Ulduar.
And Mechanomes. Which gives me excitement that maybe this will be the catalyst for 8.1 with the Mechanomes allied race.
You think so? You think you're going to get them?
Absolutely. If not, I'll be crying at the end of this one. It's interesting that we're seeing Azara, but instead of going for Azara right now, we're going for the Titans.
Well, we're trying to help Azeroth. We're trying to heal Azeroth.
Yeah.
If this helps us heal Azeroth, then that's where we're going to focus our efforts.
And we find whatever we need in the Titan laboratory. Or it's over in Nomergon, and we're going to go back and find it's over in Nomergon.
Oh, gosh. You guys ruined Nomergon, though. It's under radiation, right?
Yeah, which means it's hiding one of the best weapons ever. We just have not been able to go in because of the radiation. What is one bit of advice you'd give to another creator?
Don't be afraid to go outside of your comfort zone when you're creating content. Most times people get into a routine. The content becomes stagnant after a while. And I think I've experienced that when I've podcasted before, where the content just gets stagnant and you'll get tired of it. When you change it up, it'll make things a little bit more exciting for you, maybe for your listeners and things like that. So if you have an idea, don't be afraid to go outside of your comfort zone to test that out and see if it works.
Yeah. If there's somebody that you want to have as a guest, don't be afraid to ask them. I'm getting to a place where I'm trying to ask people like, I've been afraid to ask you because I don't want you to come on my show and hate it. But I'm like, just do it. In worst case, they'll say no.
Absolutely. That's good advice in general for talking to anybody, asking anybody anything. It's the worst they could say is no, so don't be afraid to ask.
I was amazed. Pat Krane has actually given me a lot of advice, and every once in a while I'll send a question. I don't always hear back, but when I do, I'm like, wow, Pat took time out of his busy schedule to help me with something.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've pinged him multiple times, and he's always been right there with a reply. Very, very helpful. Absolutely.
It was cool on a BNN. He's like, oh, and by the way, Fraz, before we go live, here's what I'm doing. Like, whoa, he actually wanted to show me something that they were doing on the stream. So I had a geeky moment before the actual podcast.
Berzerker.
So what is one bit of advice you would give to another creator?
This is going to sound super corny, but be you. Whatever that is, whoever you are, find your voice, whatever that may be, and just run with it. I think that there's a little bit of homogeny in the podcasting community these days. I can only speak from that angle because I don't know anything about making videos and other content really, but from the podcast community, sometimes I get a little confused because there's a lot of hosts that are kind of on the same shows, and that's not necessarily a knock on them and the job that they do. It's just there's sort of this kind of incestual thing going on. And so I think what's really important for you as a creator is to stand out on your own and to do something that's different, because if you're not, then why would anybody want to come listen to you? Because listening to one is the same as listening to the other. And how many different ways can you talk about the same stuff? And that's kind of the thing, is we're all pulling from the same pool, and it's how you look at it, how you present it, I think how you talk about it. It's one of the reasons why I love having Navox on the show with me now, is I think that instead of having just my ramblings in the dark, you now have at least one other voice that's kind of bouncing ideas back and forth. And we agree on a lot of things, but not everything. And we certainly have different perspectives. And it's a unique voice that I believe that we bring. And that's what I think anybody should want to do when they're a creator, is don't copy anybody. Granted, there's some molds that are just kind of set in a certain way, but try it. Try anything. Do anything. Just be out there, do your thing. But whatever it is, just be true to yourself and don't try to be what you think somebody else wants you to be or what somebody else already is.
A podcaster I follow, Ray Ortega, said today, create the content that you would watch.
That's it. It's, love yourself like you want to be loved by others.
Absolutely. I mean, it's almost like the golden rule. Do unto others as you do unto you.
There you go.
And I remember Navox said that he loves the fact that he can go into a lore tangent. And your eyes just go wide like, okay.
Just let him run, because you know what? He's running through his stuff and expressing his opinions and thinking about things and letting it all untangle. And by God, I'm not going to stop anyone, even if they're flat dead wrong or way off track. You know what? It's okay. We'll bring it back if we have to.
And you always have fun. And that's one thing I love about the Unshackled Fury.
Oh, yeah. If we weren't having fun, we wouldn't do it. And I guess if that's another piece of advice, have fun. For God's sake, it's a game. It's just a game. We're talking about a game. If you're not having fun or messing around or doing something that you enjoy, I mean, that's why we do it, because we enjoy talking about it and we enjoy talking to each other about it and having a little mini bromance over it. It's what makes life worth living.
Absolutely. If you're not enjoying WoW, it's not the game for you. And there were years it didn't fit in my life, so it wasn't in my life.
Yep. Moderation is key.
Absolutely.
That is true for most things in life. I still haven't learned it with some, but when it comes to gaming, you got to know when it's working and when it's not. And if it doesn't, go play Duck Hunt. Yeah. That's still a great game.
Absolutely. And when the dog goes,
I still can't shoot him, but God, I want to.
Yes.
No bastard.
Because this is Behind the Fury. What is something good or bad about your co-host on Unshackled Fury?
Here's what I'll say about this man. Navox is just a genuinely good human being. And by that, I mean, he doesn't share the kind of black soul that I do, where there's all kinds of inner turmoil. Like, he's just a good dude. And I'm sure he wrestles with his own demons. I don't know what they are, and I'm sure he'd make them up if he tried to convince me. He's just a good human being who happens to share my passion for World of Warcraft, if not more so. Like, I think he honestly loves the game more than I do. He is putting himself out there. He's like, you need a tank? I'll take anything you want. You need to run something? Let's go run it. Come on. Let's go. And I'm just not that forthcoming as much as he is. So, when you can partner up with somebody who's just a good person and also shares your passion for something, you can't ask for a better co-host than that.
He's been great for me for the fact that when I've needed to run stuff, he helped me get ahead of the curve.
Yeah, he is so willing to help anyone. I have never seen him turn anyone away. He will help people with their tech and sacrifice time on our show. Like, there have been times when we've had to start like a half hour late because he was busy helping somebody else. Again, that just shows you what kind of heart that dude has. If you've never met Navox, if you've never seen him, I mean, I haven't even seen him in person. We've only seen each other over video and talked a bunch. He is one of the most genuine people you'll ever meet. I'm very lucky that he wants to work with me, quite frankly.
Navox.
So what is something good or bad about your co-host on Unshackled Fury?
I have nothing but good things to say about the host of the Unshackled Fury podcast. Berzerker makes the show fun to be on. I was a fan of the show before I was a co-host of the show, and I feel like we work really well together. I like how the show is a little bit different in that we talk a little bit about the current happenings in Warcraft, but we aren't necessarily a news source. And I also feel like we are a very compelling alternative to what's currently out there. Even when and often I take the show off the rails and rabbit hole into oblivion about random lore discussions. For real, Fraz, I wasn't even remotely interested in lore until I started doing the show with Zerker. Like, for real. So what's funny is we'll be doing a show and I almost feel like he'll be like, oh no, he's going to take it here. And then we're going to go into a discussion about this. He's got most of the answers and stuff like that. So I have somebody I can bounce the idea off of or something I can bounce theories off of. If you want something a little different to listen to, give the Unshackled Fury podcast a listen. Write the show, things like that. We love it when people write in on the show and ask us, a question to ask on the show because it's usually off the wall and it's usually something that's really, really off the cuff, off topic and things like that. So we love that.
It's a show that I always laugh when I'm listening to the show. It is great.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you're laughing when you're listening to the show because a lot of it, we've broken character on the show multiple times where it's very much, there's a lot of tongue in cheek there when you're listening to it. If you listen to something and you take offense to it, oh my God, write in the show and let us know that you took offense to it. We'd eat that up. No, but for real, it's a lot of fun doing that show. The one thing we do it every other week and that's great. I really look forward to recording that show whenever we record it. So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun doing that.
And there's nothing to say that you can't just go to every week. Just know it's a lot of work to do every week.
It's a lot of work. And you know what? Zerker's doing all the editing. I get to show up, record, and then I'm done.
Oh,
he's doing all the editing on the back end. Here's the funny thing. Here's something I've learned, and I've learned this through podcasting. I have these little audible tics that I didn't pick up on before. When I start to think about something, I do this. It's very subtle, but once you hear it, you'll never unhear it. It's awesome. So here it is. I go like this. I go,
yes, I actually heard it during the recording today.
You're going to have to edit that out. That is I'm thinking about something or I'm about to go on to a different topic, but I'll go and then start. I've been trying really, really hard to break myself in doing that.
Well, and I say that's probably a good learning for anybody who wants to get into content creation. There's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes than you'll ever know.
Yeah. Exactly. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that you'll pick up on in post when you're listening and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to fix that. Or, oh my gosh, I'm too hot and things like that. I didn't realize, I used to record podcasts with the mic pegged, right? I would record podcasts with a mic pegged. You'd hear the air conditioner in the background. You'd hear my cats running around in the background, things like that. I used to use a Blue Yeti and that thing would pick up my neighbors across the street and things like that. I remember reading something or listening to a podcast or like, your volume really just needs to be really, really low. I look at a volume monitor here while I'm podcasting. I have a little volume monitor I listen to. And if it spikes above the yellow line, I know that I'm getting too hot.
You are pretty sexy, Navox.
Oh.
I would also say if you ever are thinking that you hate your voice, no, every podcaster hates their own voice.
Oh my gosh, I do. I do not like my voice. I don't like listening to it. I feel terrible.
You learn to tolerate it, but when you're editing it, you're like, oh, why did you say it that way? Every single time.
That's so true.
Very good, Frazley. Tests are inconclusive. There's still so much more fury to unshackle from these two. I suggest that the listeners should head out to their favorite podcast app and tune in to the Unshackled Fury. I've got other tests I need to attend to. So you are dismissed, Frazley.
Awesome. It has been kind of creepy around here. You need to turn on a light or two. Also, you might want to turn off the fog machine.
Dramatic effect.
With that, I think I'll head back to Ironforge. I'm back at my home of Ironforge until we one day reclaim Gnomergon. Yeah! Which means it's time for a quick rundown of news. So I am recording this on Wednesday, September 12th. So there may be news that happens before this episode is released, but after I record this. But as of today, the virtual ticket is now on sale. This year it is $50, and that's $10 more than last year. But if you were like me and bought the physical collector's edition, as well as the digital edition, and you got a Blizzard balance, you can use your Blizzard balance for the virtual ticket, and you get $10 off the 2018 BlizzCon goodie bag. Don't know if I'm going to get this, but it includes a BlizzCon commemorative book showing the history of BlizzCon, a World of Warcraft faction keychain, kind of similar to the coin. I mean, it's a different design, but yeah, kind of similar to that. An Overwatch challenge keychain, a classic Diablo vinyl figure, a Hearthstone magnet set, Heroes of the Storm Ravenlord crest magnet, and the StarCraft 20th anniversary pin. And this year, it is a box. It's called the Goodie Bag, but it's coming in a box this year. And they also announced today some different things. So there is a new BlizzCon app, and they said that you can do video casting. And they even said things like Chromicast. Today, there is an Overwatch Legendary skin. There's a Demon Hunter Sombra. Over the next 7 weeks, we'll be getting more in-game items, and they said that the next one will probably be Heroes of the Storm. They're going to have a Build-A-Panel. They said players will select things like franchise, host, topic, and other things. And they already had a poll on the host, and the host is Darren DePaul. So right now they are having voting on which franchise will be about. They're going to have Twitch integration so you can support teams. I don't know if this is just for Hearthstone, but you can support your team and unlock rewards like packs and exclusive emotes on Twitch. So if they stay around, I'm going to have to get those. I love the Overwatch emotes. And they said that the cosplay contest is going to start before BlizzCon, and then the top 25 will go to community night. And they're going to have a voting for virtual ticket holders, so the virtual ticket ones can crown a virtual ticket winner. There's a lot of really cool information about this BlizzCon, and coverage starts today and will be going for 7 weeks. So that could probably be also why it's up for $10. Wowhead has been looking at a lot of the art that's going out about BlizzCon. They believe that the key art for this year is about Sourfang. So that'd be kind of interesting, especially with the old Soldier cinematic. The Warfront for Battle for Stromgarde is now live in the United States and European servers. So by the time this episode comes out, will probably be about time for Alliance. LFR Wing 1 and Mythic difficulty of Old Deer have opened. LFR Wing 2 will be opening September 25th. Warcraft Twitter has posted some LFR Wing 1 tips. One thing I forgot to talk about on the last episode of FrazlCast, in the race for Mythic Old Deer, Method will be live streaming it, and they have started their coverage today. It's really cool, and it's fun to be able to follow the team and see it from their point of view. So the race is on, and right now, Big Dumb Guild, Limit, Method, some Russian name I can't spell, Memento, and Wildcard Gaming are all in the running. There's a fun thing that happens in Old Deer, depending on the Azerite armor traits. So there's a list on that and what it can do. Players have already gotten Glory of the Old Deer Raider. There's a guide for it. And Wildhead has a list of all the groups that have gotten World First so far. Then as of September 11th, there have been a lot of hotfixes. So more class, PvP, raid, and dungeon changes. Like on the 7th, there were heroic Gahoon nerfs. There was Azerite trait tuning. There were PvP hotfixes on the 7th for Arms Warrior and Beast Mastery. And with yesterday's maintenance, there were some more classes that were tuned. Warfronts now require 320 eye level to queue, and unlocking the 5th tier of war traits now only requires defeating 2 unique enemy Warfront commanders, and instead of 3 commanders. And then there are some fun references that have been found in the game. So for Legends of the Hidden Temple, they have found one in Nazmir. I know my friends Allie, Casey, Silverbolt, and Kara will love this. I always wanted to see this one filmed, but I only got to see a filming of Nickelodeon Guts. Do you have it? Guts! I was also on Slime Time Live on 9/10/2001, so I didn't get slimed, but I was taller than the host. There's also a Monty Python reference in Dressfar, and a Kingdom Hearts reference in Stormsong Valley, so I know Barf, Scruffy, and Spaz will absolutely love that. And ArtStation has been doing showcases of the different art teams from World of Warcraft, and they have so far done FX and animation, character art, and dungeon environment. And the Angels are the first team to complete a Mythic Plus 15 on time. Some former developers of WoW had a Reddit AMA that happened today. And Jaina's voice actor Laura Bailey has been in many roles ranging from Uncharted 4 to Fallout to Fullmetal Alchemist to The Next Last of Us and even Lady Comstock in BioShock Infinite. So Curse has a video of many of her roles. And then I saw this from Madros on the All Things Azeroth Discord. An article by PC Gamer shows that Blizzard has job listings that are hinting at something entirely new, but there are also a lot of openings ranging from consoles to mobile to PC. So things like co-op, RPG, and first-person combat. So maybe there's a role you can fill. Go check out the Blizzard job openings. You never know. You could be like Hannah Straw and be making gnomes for the Blizzard Launcher and other roles too. But thank you, Hannah, for the awesome gnomes and goblins in the Blizzard Launcher. Keep at it. And Pokemon Go is letting players nominate new Pokestop locations. So it is a beta. It is currently limited to South Korea and Brazil and level 40 players. That was one thing when I played Pokemon Go. It needed more Pokestops. There was like one rural area where the nearest one was like 40 minutes away. And then on October 1st, Verizon is launching a new $50 5G home internet service, and there'll be no data caps. I know a lot of people who use their cellular like their internet, or they can't get fast internet where they live, so this is a really cool option. From what it sounds like, you'll get a router, and then you basically hook that up, and it gets cellular access. Really cool. And today, Apple had an event, and they launched the next Apple Watch. It is the Series 4. It has a larger display, an echocardiogram reader. It has fall detection. And then Series 3 is staying around, but it'll be cheaper at about $279. And then Apple announced the iPhone XS and iPhone XS Max. It has faster Face ID, upgraded chips. And they also unveiled the iPhone XR. It is a smaller screen. It's an LCD screen. It doesn't have 3D touch, but it has haptic feedback. It has an aluminum back. This is the new iPhone SE. Same specs as what's the top model, but in a cheaper form factor. And Mac Stories has a list of all the pre-order and release dates for all of them, as well as the release dates for the new software for iOS 12, watchOS, and macOS.
I'm an editing gnome, and for some reason, Frazley kept calling it the iPhone X. It is the iPhone 10.
And I found this on The Verge, that Amazon will be selling live 7-foot Christmas trees. So they will come in a box with Prime shipping. So now you don't have to go to a tree lot. You can now buy a tree directly from Amazon. But then you wouldn't be able to recreate the opening scene of Christmas Vacation. Aww. Well, one thing about gaming is that you can work up an appetite while playing. So my friends Michael Haidt and Mike Levine of Food and Fury podcast have just a treat for you. Prepare for your well-fed buff with Food and Fury Snackzeroth Edition.
It's time to gather your sword and board. Let's enter the kitchen with Food and Fury. 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Food and Fury. This is Snackzeroth Edition, where we deliver you a war-forward snack each week with enough buffs to help you with your battle for Azeroth. Whether you've made a roasted boar meat or you've conjured a mage table, we welcome you to Food and Fury. This is Snackzeroth Edition, episode 4. I'm Michael Haidt. Joining me today, the legend, the druid, the PvP machine, Mike Levine. Hello.
Hey, Food Fam. Good to have you back. Glad to be back. Let's get rolling, Mike.
So, Mike, this week you busted out your Beast Master Hunter because, well, they seem to be a tad drop OP at the moment. And, of course, why not work on a second 120?
Well, yeah, man. I mean, come on. I'm loving my Hunter. I can't believe I waited so long to play one, dude. I used my boost on the Hunter at the end of Legion, and I'm loving the pets. And, you know, somebody's got to have your back. You're always flagged in war mode, dude.
So you're in Nazmir, and I'm still hanging tight in Vol'dun, right?
Yeah.
And at first, we're like, oh, man, we're in two completely different zones. And then we're like, it dawned upon us that it doesn't really matter.
Right.
So we finally group up, and we start a new zone together.
Yeah.
And after lots and lots of stair climbing, I eventually find the expedition map guy in Zoldazar. And he leads me to Rokhan. Now, listen,
cool dude.
Rokhan is a big deal. He's one of my favorite troll characters. Mm-hmm. So at this point, I'm completely geeking out. And to boot, we're now in a lush, tropical jungle. And I can say goodbye to the barren wasteland of Cobra-head-infested Vol'dun. By the way, do you remember when Cobra Commander turned out to be a big snake in G.I. Joe?
Yeah, sure. I think so.
All right, never mind. So we roll up in Nazmir, and my Demon Hunter is still feeling pretty strong. Blizz, no nerfs required. I'm just as happy as can be hanging with my new bestie Rokhan, the Shadow Hunter. And in the distance, I see this hunter rolling into my zone with 2 giant T-Rex pets.
Yeah, man.
I completely freeze in my tracks, just waiting for some Imperial entanglements. Fear not, I will. It's my Jedi friend, the one and only Mike Levine.
Yeah, man. So you know me. We have to find the biggest enemy in sight and proceed to pull one of the very large undead T-Rexes with his menagerie of undead trolls.
So this is what we do on a fairly regular basis, right?
Of course.
We find the hardest mob in our view distance. I get completely nervous. You calmly just say, pull it, we'll be fine. And then I respond with challenge accepted.
Yes.
We take them down, and this time we loot some amazing, what do we have, 3 gold apiece?
Yeah, but you know what, Mike? It's not about the gold.
No?
It's about the glory.
The glory.
And glory makes you hungry, right?
Sure does.
And that's why each week we will be boosting your cooking skill with one recipe for success. You can always find the recipe and more on our website at foodandfury.com.
You know, Mike, in honor of our lush jungle oasis, we're going to dive into a dish with some ripe, green, amazing avocados. We're making some guacamole this week.
Yeah, but it's not that guacamole from the mystery clear bag in the refrigerated section, but the kind of guacamole that you would get in an awesome Mexican restaurant. But when it comes to Snackzeroth, we don't have that kind of time. The raid night is set. You've already confirmed, and you have to be on time to /join with a snack.
Because when it's time to pull that boss, you want to make sure that your range check in DBM lets you know that your guac is within close proximity to your chips. We're going to make some mage tableside guacamole, some holy guacamole, some holy shockamole. So when you want that late night crunchy salty chip with rich avocado and lime blast of flavor, you're not willing to equip a snack with the wrong stats.
Nope.
Because when it all comes together in the perfect bite, you are all in until there's no more dip for that tortilla chip. So come on, mages, conjure up some ripe avocados because this guacamole train, this holy shockamole train, is about to roll.
Yes, let's get rolling, Mike. What do we need?
All right, we're going to need some fresh cilantro, a red onion, a little bit of canola oil, 3 ripe avocados, 2 limes, some salt and pepper, because we're going to push it real good.
Oh, baby. So I have my mats. What am I going to need, Mike?
All right, you're going to grab a cutting board and chop up your cilantro and dice up your onions. Now transfer that to a bowl. Cut your avocados in half and scoop out the goods. Roll your limes on the cutting board with your palm, cut it in half, and squeeze that juicy goodness into the bowl. Give it a little drizzle of oil. Now grab a fork and carefully mash it together. You don't want soup here, so don't pop bloodlust. Give it a sprinkle of salt and pepper, and you're good to go.
And if you want to go heroic, take half an orange, give it a little squeeze. That fresh juice will go amazing with the lime and bring out some bright flavor.
Now, some people can't stop at heroic. They want to go mythic. So if you want to go mythic, this is what you do. Option 1, grab a jalapeno, cut it in half. Use a spoon to scrape out all the white part and seeds before cutting it up. If you like it hot, leave some of it in. And option 2, if you like garlicky goodness, because we can all use a little bit more of that in our life, you're going to slice and dice 2 cloves of garlic with a drizzle of olive oil, or use a jarred stuff. Toss that in a bowl in the microwave for 10 seconds. Add that toasty, garlicky goodness to your guac. All right, my friends of the Grummels, so I think that's going to do it for our food buff for all. With a little prep time before you log on, you can enjoy this rich, flavorful, oh-so-satisfying chip with a king of dips that you'll be scraping in the bottom of the bowl before your next pull. This is a major upgrade from anything in a package. If you get a chance, check out our food and cooking podcast, Food and Fury. This week on Food and Fury, we're tackling an amazing salad. Now, hold on. Take it easy. It's the iconic Caesar salad with homemade croutons. You can find this show, social media, this recipe, and many more on our website at foodandfury.com. If you get a chance, give us a shout out on iTunes, even if your blood runneth blue. And a thanks this week to Amanda Sloan on Twitter for suggesting a meatless snack like this one. And of course, the one and only gnome that has horde street cred, Frazley. That's going to do it for us, for me, for Mike. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Michael and Mike. I am absolutely looking forward to more guacamole. Those avocados and stuff, oh, they're so good. But you know, what time is it?
Let's look at what has been happening in the community.
Awesome. Let's do that. So Scar Productions has a metal cover of Daughter of the Sea. Check it out, and Scar does an amazing job on their metal covers. Navox points to a fact regarding innkeepers I never knew about. Whatever direction you are facing, when you bind to them, that's how you will end up when you return. So they said, bind yourself facing the exit, because then that's how you will bind yourself to that innkeeper. We always bind to the innkeeper facing them. Whoa! And a reminder that the cosplay exhibition registration is still open. The deadline is October 15th, but you still have time to enter and walk the stage. If you bought a BlizzCon ticket to attend in person, emails have gone out with a barcode and you can get your virtual ticket, in-game goodies, access to the online merch sale, and get your goodie bag discount. And there is a Total Biscuit commemorative bundle for StarCraft 2. It will help the family of Total Biscuit, and future sales of John's Announcer Pack will go to the family as well. And then there was a podcast that was really cool called Campfire Chronicles for World of Warcraft. Well, they have announced the spiritual successor to it is called the Podcast. And they said that our stories will be told, but this time with a splash of WoW news thrown into the mix. So they said keep your ear out because it will be launching real soon. And then John states with the World of Warcraft Diary Kickstarter has now surpassed $300,000 raised. You have until September 25th to back this. Already from the AMAs that I've heard, the interviews, there's a lot of really cool details that will be in the book, so it's fun to see behind the curtain. John States designed and built half of Vanilla WoW's Dungeons and Raids, so definitely check that out. Jules Scott posted a thing on heroeshearth.com called 2 Content Creators with Love. It kind of goes through the pain content creators feel it was helpful to see that all the work that goes into making this show is similar to things that Jules goes through to make content every week. It's always encouraging to know that we are not alone in all of our struggles, and I've enjoyed the discussion it sparked in the Tarn Think Tank creative channel on Discord. And then a reminder that the running of the trolls...
Running of the gnomes. Frazley keeps calling it running of the trolls. I don't know why.
...returns on October 13th. We're almost through September, so it's coming up real soon. It will be on Scarlet Crusade US at 7 p.m. Eastern. Donations are already open to raise support for the Cleveland Clinic's toy vaccine. It's a vaccine that can prevent triple-negative breast cancer, which is often hereditary and the most deadly form of breast cancer. Head on over there and support if you can, but I hope to see you along the raceway. Well, that's another episode of FrazlCast. So we look behind the fury of Unshackled Fury podcast, and definitely check them out. I've enjoyed all their shows. Live shows of FrazlCast resume Thursday, September 20th, and at the time of this recording, I have War of Orc Public Radio and Valtari of Lagging Balls lined up. I also interviewed a special guest with Ali on Tuesday, and that will be on a future episode of FrazlCast. I'm very excited. We had a blast. Well, I am Frazley, and you can find this show at FrazlCast.com. Until next week, be awesome.
Do not fold, spindle, or Buxley. Buxley here to answer your World of Warcraft questions in this edition of Ask Buxley. This question is about transmogrification. Evandros writes, Dear Buxley, how does transmogrification work? Transmogrification, or transmog for short, or mog for shorter, or for shortest, is one of my favorite things to do in Azeroth. It is also one of the best moneymakers for ethereals, just behind mailbox dancing. For those of you that don't know, a transmog vendor will change the appearance of just about anything you're wearing. It just has to be the same type of item. I mean, you can't just ask to have a hat that looks like your boots. I mean, that would be silly. Would you really want to have your smelly boots on your head? That's why your feet are so far away from your nose in the first place. So what happens is you pick out what you'd like each of your items to look like, and then the transmog vendor will make it look just like what you picked. The best thing about transmogging items is you don't have to have the item with you. You just have to have owned it before. This saves a lot of bank space, so you can save those items you really want to keep, like that Brewfest schnitzel that you got a few years ago. Anyway, the ethereal reaches into your mind to grab your memory of what something looks like, and voila! It changes to that item. That's the reason they call it a MOG in the first place, because the initials MOG stands for Memories of Gear, which is exactly what they're using. Oh, and if you see somebody running around in armor that looks like a bunch of crepe paper and stickers, be nice to them. They don't have very good memories. Thanks for your question! If you'd like to know what I'm up to every day, follow Ask Buxley on Twitter. If you'd like to catch up on the segments you might have missed, look for Ask Buxley on iTunes. Time is money, friend!
Welcome to the Frazley Report, a short news report by me, Frazley, the Awesome Gnome, to deliver your World of Warcraft news. So this week, Mythic and LFR Wing 1 for Old Year opened up, and I wanted to try to get in. But when I got to Nazmir, I found out that for LFR, the queuing I level is 320, and I am sadly 297. Thankfully, Hexalon on Twitter suggested I do more World Quests to get gear, and it'll help with my reputations. Which is good, I'm working on Pathfinder. As I was mulling over the fact that I can't do Old Year, it started to rain. You know, like in movies, when you get bad news. So I decided it would be best to head to an inn for the night to work on some podcast editing, as well as schoolwork for my degree in communications. As I was looking for a place to rest, I found a dreary little inn called Nate's Inn. It had a bunch of little huts all in a row, and one of them was like an office. Then there was this big house off to the side. It kind of resembled motels that you see in real life. Kind of looked awkward in Azeroth, but maybe Blizzard is trying some new designs. I mean, maybe this is player housing. Who knows? So I walked in, and I met a tall human who looked very peculiar and awkward. They said their name was Borvin Nates. This is their family's inn. They gave me a room, and...
Oh, I'm sorry. Mother left something here she needs for her job at Uldir. I was coming to pick it up. Forgot that we had a guest. We don't get many guests around here.
That's all right. Your mother works in Uldir?
Yes. Mother is a raid boss.
Whoa! That is very cool! My listeners would love to hear her experience. Can I get a chance to speak with her?
Mother's very busy. I don't know if she would have time.
Okay, then anything you can tell me about her experience? Any stories?
Mother returns home very tired most nights. Even before it opened, there was the raid testing at Blizzard, then the alpha beta test. Oh, Normal was in her robes open last week. With LFG and Mythic starting, Mother will be working many long nights going forward until the next raid tier, and then Old Deer goes on farm. Oh, eventually, once other raids open up, it will slow down until the raid is soloed occasionally 2 expansions from now.
That sounds exhausting. Constantly being killed over and over again.
It is the worst. Mother, sorry, we are close. Mother's pain is my pain. Wait, Mother's calling.
I didn't hear anything.
Off to go, sir. Mother needs me.
That was weird. Really do hope they aren't a psycho. I'd hate for them to barge in and kill me at some point. Ah, well, I'm kind of tired. I better shower and head off to bed. I'm going to try for some world quests tomorrow. Get my eye level up. This has been the Frazl Report. Until next time, be awesome.
Hi, my name is Joe Hogan, and I'm a geek. And if you're currently listening to this, there's a good chance you're a geek too. So check out my podcast, Geektitude. Each week, I talk with somebody about their geek aptitude. Sometimes I talk to people in a geeky profession. Sometimes it's someone doing something really cool with their geekiness. Often it's another geeky podcaster. But it's always someone who wants to share their inner geek. So join me each week as we come together to geek out about all the geeky stuff we love. And remember, this week, keep it geek.
FrazlCast is a fan podcast that covers Blizzard games. We are not affiliated with Blizzard Entertainment. Views expressed by the host and guests are their own. Some of the art, music, and sound effects come from Blizzard games and are owned by Blizzard Entertainment, Inc. No copyright infringement is intended.
Want more awesomeness every week? Visit weeklyawesome.com. Weekly podcasts to make your week better. Remember to smile and be awesome.
This show is brought to you by Dragon Powered Studio. Find more at dragonpoweredstudio.com.